Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong says the government has always been working with Singaporeans to improve their lives and that the ruling party, through successive generations, has always kept the people's interests at heart. The Prime Minister was speaking at the PAP rally tonight. Channel News Asia's May Wong joins me now. May, what did the Prime Minister say?
Right, Jen, the Prime Minister refuted the opposition's accusations that the PAP has changed. In fact, he said the successive PAP governments, from Mr. Lee Kuan Yew to Mr. Goh Chok Tong to his current leadership team, they have changed policies with the times. But one thing remains: the party's fundamental ideals have not changed one bit, because the government still strives to achieve the goals of helping the low income, the middle class, as well as the elderly. For the elderly, Mr. Lee also emphasized and stressed that they have actually helped to build Singapore, and so the government, the PAP party, will not forsake them. In addition to that, Mr. Lee stressed that the government will always stay on the side of Singaporeans, a point that he repeated throughout his entire speech, and says that the party will continue to maintain high standards of integrity. And one thing is clear, that the PAP has not changed. It's about the fact that they still consider high standards of honesty and integrity as the #1 priority. Let's take a listen.
We have always openly talked about these challenges and trade-offs, even when it is unpopular. When you want something more, how are we going to pay for it? What do we have to give up? During election rallies, you often find people talking about more. I want more this, I want more that, I would like the government to do this and the other. Very seldom do they say, how is the government going to pay for this? Last night at the Workers' Party rally, Mr. Loh Teck Yang spoke at length about nationalizing public transport and utilities. He says, why do you have private companies? Why not take it over? Government runs this. If the government runs this, then you don't need profits. Then it'll be cheaper. If it were so simple, why hasn't every other country in the world done that? Ask yourself, why is it many countries which used to do that, have the government run it, have decided this is bad? Better let the private sector have a role, and we manage it and oversee it and regulate it, and we make sure that it works properly for Singaporeans.
Well, Mr. Lee also apologized to the Punggol East residents, saying that it's unfortunate that they have to go through another round of election. But he says that the PAP clearly shows that it is not perfect. It is still working out its own details and its own policies, and that the PAP has actually handled the issue in terms of the resignation of Michael Palmer over an extramarital affair with a lot of transparency and with a lot of honesty. Let's take a listen.
I'm sorry that we have put the residents through another election so quickly, but I have to point out that what we did, the PAP did in Punggol East, is quite different from how the Workers' Party handled Aokang when Mr. Yaw Shin Leong went missing in action. That is what it means to have integrity. I concede, nobody is perfect. Nobody is without lapses. Certainly not the PAP. We make mistakes and lapses from time to time, but we will admit to our mistakes and shortcomings and do our best to put things right and work with Singaporeans to do better.
Well, Jen, Mr. Lee also stressed throughout his entire speech that the PAP is working its heart out for the people, and really the policies are developed for Singaporeans, for the benefit of Singaporeans. He also said that the country actually needs a government where members can work together and develop policies that will be beneficial for all across the board.
Do you want the Workers' Party of last week's rally, when they were supporting the PAP's policies and claiming that they do not blindly oppose policy, but they'll give the PAP time to show what it can do because they don't want to checkmate the PAP and mess things up? Or do we want yesterday's Workers' Party, frightening residents to vote for the PAP? Within 1 week, from a constructive position to a demanding and destructive position. As they say in Chinese, 工人党政策像月亮，初一十五不一样。The Workers' Party policy is like the moon. On the first day and on the 15th day, it's different. So we need to develop a capable and a committed leadership for Singapore. Good MPs to represent us, good ministers who can run the country and work with us, constructive politics to tackle our challenges together.
Well, talking about government policies, Mr. Lee emphasized time and again that they have shown that it works. And one example he cited was actually Workers' Party candidate Lee Li Lian, who has actually benefited from the education system and worked her way up throughout the entire system. And so this clearly, he says, shows that the system built by the PAP is a good one and a sound one. In addition to that, he also talked about the PAP candidate Koh Poh Koon, whom he has actually handpicked. He says that he's confident that Dr. Koh will be a good MP and will be able to contribute very well in Parliament. In fact, he has said previously that he's made out for higher office and has a potential to become an office holder in the future as well.
He took a while to think it over because what I was asking of him was not a light thing. It's a difficult decision. If I had asked him and he said yes straight away, I would have been a bit shaken. Does he know what he is in for? It's not just a by-election which he has to fight, but after that, the commitment, the obligation, the responsibility, what it means to be a PAP MP and to wear these whites. He thought carefully. I met him more than once. Eventually, he decided, yes, he was ready. He answered the call. He was prepared to give it a fight. My respect for him went up after that.
Well, Jen, Mr. Lee also said that since the last general election in 2011, he has actually added a lot of new faces to renew the ranks of the PAP, and these include having new ministers such as Heng Swee Keat, Tan Chuan Jin, as well as Chan Chun Sing. And he says that all these new ministers, as well as new MPs introduced, have made substantial contribution to Parliament and also for the people of Singapore.
All right, May, thanks for the update on tonight's PAP rally. Now, PAP's candidate for Punggol East, Dr. Koh Poh Koon, has emphasized that he has plans for Punggol East residents and build upon the good work of his predecessor. Addressing the last PAP rally this evening, Dr. Koh says his plans include mobilizing youth to assist the vulnerable, complete the upgrading of Rivervale Plaza, have a community club, expand local childcare places and push for better connectivity. Dr. Koh also responded to comments made online about himself and his campaign over the past few days.
Walking the ground for the last 9 days has showed me that the real world out there is different from what is existing in cyberspace. I feel the warmth of people that I've touched. I feel the passion of people in Punggol East. I feel the warm reception. The world out there, the real world, is different from cyberspace. These are people with real needs, with real problems. People who has passion. People who is able to touch you and with their example, show you what it's like to be a fellow citizen of Singapore.
And you can watch Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong's by-election rally speech on channelnewsasia.com/Punggol East. And for a look at what the opposition parties are up to, I'm joined by our editor, Imelda Sad. Imelda, let's start with the Singapore Democratic Alliance. What did they say today?
Well, that's right. The Singapore Democratic Alliance's candidate Desmond Lim, he says that he's run a gentlemanly campaign. For example, he said that he hasn't resorted to any personal attacks of the other candidates, and he hopes that voters will appreciate this quality about him. Now, Mr. Lim described the 9 days of hustings as a real campaign. He said this time, compared to the last general election, he has more support from logistics, operations, finance, and the media, and that this has allowed him to completely focus on reaching out to the more than almost 32,000 or so voters in Punggol East. Now, Mr. Lim is expected to upload more videos of his online rally today, and he hopes the significant number of views of his clips can be translated into votes on polling day. And he said he will spend time with his wife and son on cooling off day tomorrow. That's where no campaigning is allowed. Let's hear what he has to say.
The reason why I need to spend with them is that I have been spend most of my time outside for the last 1 week, and I really miss them. I hope that tomorrow I will have a good time with them and catch up with the time losses. And I would prepare breakfast, lunch and dinner, cook for them, and perhaps maybe if we still have time in between, we may go out for a walk.
Now, the Workers' Party candidate Li Lian, she spoke to reporters today. What was her message?
That's right. Now, Ms. Lee told us that she's managed to cover all the blocks at Punggol East. There are more than 120 blocks in the ward. And if you remember the last time during the last general election, Ms. Lee did not manage to cover all the blocks. So this time round she has. We have Hasnita Majid, who spoke to her earlier this evening. And Hasnita has this report.
This has been a familiar scene for Punggol East residents for the past week or so. But it will all come to an end tonight, the last day of campaigning.
It has been intense, but very memorable, I have to say. I've met many residents, and they're warm and friendly. Okay, but I'm not going to take that for granted, all right? I'm not going to speculate any result. We will wait for polling day.
She said that the campaign to woo voters has been physically challenging, with most days starting at 7:30 in the morning and ending at about 10 at night. But she has managed to achieve a target of reaching out to 100% of HDB blocks compared to the 2011 general election, when she managed to cover 60% of the blocks in the ward. She added that setting up a Facebook page has been helpful, as she's been able to communicate better with residents. When asked if the party will merge the Aljunied Hougang Town Council with Punggol East Town Council if she wins, she said that she would reveal the details if she's elected into Parliament.
The Reform Party held a rally tonight, and you are monitoring that.
That's right. Now, since this is the last rally for this by-election, the Reform Party took the opportunity to take aim at not just the ruling People's Action Party, but also the other opposition Workers' Party. Of course, you know that the Workers' Party is seen as the front-runner among the three opposition parties in this by-election. And it wasn't just Mr. Jayaratnam, but also the other speakers who spoke about why there should be more than just one dominant opposition voice in Singapore's parliament. Now, Mr. Jayaratnam explained why residents should translate what he calls their curiosity for him, their disenchantment towards the Workers' Party and their anger towards the PAP to votes for the Reform Party.
I too have questions, but I also have a lot of the answers. If you put an economist into Parliament to ask these questions, you will finally see what opposition is good for. Believe me, I can outclass our PM or Tarman in a debate any day. Which is why the PAP refused to debate with me. Only by sending me into Parliament will we get proper answers.
And Mr. Jayaratnam also questioned the policies of the PAP, for example, issues of immigration, issues such as the rising cost of living, healthcare costs, wages falling behind. And he said, as an economist, he has ready policy alternatives. In fact, he went on to list all the various policy alternatives that the Reform Party has been speaking about, such as giving Singaporeans free preschool education, universal healthcare insurance, and reduced duration for national service.
I will be fearless about demanding transparency and accountability from the PAP and following the trail wherever the answers to my questions might lead. Of course, I will play a constructive role in Parliament. That is why we have policy alternatives that are better than the PAP's. The Reform Party will be pro-Singaporean.
And, you know, despite being a new face in Punggol East, Mr. Jayaratnam said that residents have been friendly towards him. And if you remember, he also gave 3 promises to residents if elected. That is, he will move to Punggol East if he gets elected. He will be a full-time MP, and that he will donate at least 10% of his MP allowance to the community.
All right, Imelda and May, thanks for the latest updates. And that was a wrap of Day 9 campaigning for the Punggol East by-election. Residents will make the choice from 4 political parties for their Member of Parliament this Saturday, January 26.